Welcome back to the Are You Strong show. I have an awesome guest on today, and wait till you hear this guy's accolades. I mean, it's a laundry list, so it might take me a couple of minutes to read them off. But this I like to say young man. I think everybody who's on these shows, I call everybody a young man, right? But he went to University of New Haven up in Connecticut, played football there, all conference, all New England, all American. Spent time with the New England Patriots. Then he went overseas and he played, football in England, which was pretty cool. I want to talk about that. He's in multiple Hall of Fame classes. Most people are lucky if they're just in one. This guy's in the New Haven County Football Hall of Fame, West Haven High School Hall of Fame, University of New Haven Sports Hall of Fame, three different Hall of Fames. I'm lucky if I'm just in one. After college, this guy's business accolades are just incredible. Managing partner of North American Sports Group, started there. He went back to his alma mater, University of New Haven, and became the director of economic and athletic development. So I definitely want to dive into that one. That's got to be a lot of fun. Became an advisor for a company called Game Plan U, which is really cool and deep dive into that. And then recently, American Gridiron 1880 co-founder. We're going to dive deep into that one as well and have some fun. But started a 5% club program about athletes, and he's an author. How to Land a Dream Job If Your Dad's Not the Owner of the Team, first edition. Second edition, Sports Dream Job Playbook. Welcome to the show, Rob Thompson.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Nice to
Man,
meet you, buddy.
I'm excited to have you on. And I got a ton of questions here to ask you.
Sure.
And what's cool about this situation is none of them have been preempted. Like you have no idea what I'm going to ask you, which
No,
is
that's
great. But
beautiful.
but before I start ripping you with questions, why don't you,
Yeah.
you tell the audience just a little bit about yourself?
I married my college sweetheart, which is probably the greatest achievement of my life because I
Okay.
certainly way outkicked my coverage on that one. I met her when I was a sophomore in college, and we've been married and have raised four children together. And the biggest and the greatest success of my life is 100% marrying the right woman who will go along with this crazy ride
And you
with
said
me.
high school or college?
College. Yeah,
College.
yeah, it's my college sweetheart. So it's just that made the difference in everything in my life because she allowed me to chase the dreams. She allowed me to take risks,
Mm.
and be really who I was and understand kind of that part of it. So that's the core, that's the foundation of who I am. My life kind of and my career intertwined because I was able to do everything that I was really enjoyed and passionate about. I was fortunate enough to start with the I coached college football at Boston University, so I started off there. My line coach in college was Tony Sperano, who went on to be the
Okay.
head coach of the Miami Dolphins and the Raiders, and he's from our hometown here. And so there was that kind of synergy with him, and he launched my career. But the one thing I realized is I didn't like the day to day of coaching. I just got done over in Europe. I played 22 games, and then I came here, and it was, I had to jump right into camp. So it was probably I didn't have a break mentally. Anyway, so
What
got
year
it.
was that, Rob?
That was 1990. Yeah.
All right. So you had to do against the Maine Black Bears.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. 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 I think we got beat that game. I think. We didn't win too many games, so yeah, I'm
All right.
sure we got beat. But yeah, so I started off there. I realized quickly, and this is kind of, I think we all go through this. I realized what I really enjoyed doing was the recruiting side of it, and I love that part of it. And so I did that. Once we did the full season of that, I decided, I think I should go back home to Connecticut and marry my sweetheart college girlfriend who's been waiting for me to go to Europe and then go to Boston. And it's like, all right, enough is enough. And so I left and I started the very first recruiting agency, high school recruiting agency called East Coast Recruiting, based upon an old athletic director I met out in Santa Barbara Community College who was a Northeast guy. And he said, hey, no one's flying Northeast to find football players. They're all flying South and West. Those kids, there's a lot of them there. They need some help. So went back home to Connecticut and I started at, I was 23. We just got married, had, first baby on the way. My wife and I started the business. And, we started, just helping as many high school kids in the Northeast find that home in college without these college coaches coming through town, right? So there wasn't the web, there wasn't internet, there wasn't email, there wasn't social media. It was really relationships that these guys needed, and they would pick off college coaches, and they would just kind of go through Street and Smith magazine and just try to find prospects. Well, they came into me, and I had TV set up in my garage, and they'd sit down and drink a beer and smoke a cigar, and I'd tell them all the kids in the area. I sold that. Right, I sold that within the first 15, I don't know, a year and a half, and I thought it was great because I had my first exit for a whopping $5,000, and I thought that was the greatest thing in the
Worth a
world.
lot of money back then.
Yeah, oh, yeah. And I went to work for a company who bought me called Athletes Inc. So we expanded that into Europe and other countries, is sending not only the so it was a full life cycle, the high school kids. And then on their way out, we'd send them over to Europe and play in the European leagues and the leagues I played in over in Europe and Australia and Japan. So there's a lot of kids that we helped on extending their careers, helping them kind of make that career connection from, I'm not done playing yet, but I know I can't play in the NFL. The Arena Football League was just starting, and kids weren't as apt to go up to Canada. So their options were few and far between. So having that experience of playing over in Europe allowed me to really take my American hat off and understand that there's one language in football, and it's football language, football English. Like, you can't translate quarterback, you can't translate, some of the language that we use. So here's these guys from all over the world, playing together and all speaking the same language. Yeah. Half of us know how to speak each other's languages, but we connected through football, and that was a beautiful thing. And I stayed over there for a little while longer to do some promoting for the World League and some other, American Bowls that were happening. So I got a little bit of a bug on the other side of it. So my transition to, hey, what's next for me, it started kind of there to open my eyes. Yeah. Playing over the European League, they didn't need guys from Notre Dame and Syracuse. They didn't need guys from Colgate and the Ivy League schools, and guys that were a little bit more focused on their next step in their next career, knowing that this is just a great experience to have before I get out there, and an eye-opening experience around just culture and life and music and everything that kind of connects us together, food and football, boom, 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 boom. So that was the foundation and really sparked me when I came home. And after, fast forward, I working for Athletes Inc. We ended up getting on the radar and helping, because now the NFL was starting this new youth development program. They wanted to bring kids from Europe over in Japan over to the United States. So got on the radar, I went to work for them. So, and I started in 1994 with the NFL, and I was part of the NFL flag creative launch team. So they needed someone with a background in international, a coach, a player, and I kind of fit in, and I ended up meeting everybody on just volunteering to go do a new play football program that the Patriots did at the time. It was the very first one that the league kicked off for NFL flag, youth programming, and I met the right people. I ended up meeting the new director of the youth, the NFL flag program, and he brought me in and helped them to create the rules, do all the training, develop. And so for a decade, I traveled all over the world, setting up leagues, tournaments, and everything that had to do, which is now an Olympic sport. So that to me was my greatest moment. Probably the thing that I'm most proud of in my career is taking a sport, creating the rules from my garage, creating all the coaching manuals, the training manuals, the practice drills, all the officiating rules, and doing that from my little garage outside of New Haven, Connecticut.
Now, where does all that stuff live now?
Oh, it's in storage in our storage unit in Florida. Okay. Yeah, I think we got we're up here in Connecticut. We got the place down there, so it's a little bit all over the place. So. Yeah, so that was the beginning of, and I know I'm taking a long road here, but I think you really need to know kind of where I am right now, but where I came from, and it's important. And so that experience was kind of the beginning of it all. So it's people thought we were crazy back then to take the a NFL flag or flag football is not real football, and there's a difference between, we're not trying to develop players, we're trying to develop consumers, because you put a ball in any kid's hand, the chances are it's later on in life, they're going to probably play it as an adult, their kids are probably going to play it growing up, and they're going to definitely go to games, watch games, and buy product. So that's been, NFL, NBA, MLS, that's all their objective. Their objective is to put a ball in kids' hands to become consumers. We have high school and colleges and to kind of create and develop players. But so that was it. Yeah, that was the beginning of it. And so then I went into I left there to become a GM of an expansion arena football team in Albany, New York. The day that we were announcing the name of the team was 9/11, and I was driving in that morning from Saratoga Springs down to Albany at the press conference, and him and I were listening to what was happening down in New York City, and one of the planes came over, Albany right around the same time, so everything was kind of shut down by the time, and I had commercials dropping at 9 a.m. Of our new name of our team because we were going to our press conference, and the name of our team was the Warbirds, and the commercials were bombs dropping on the city of Albany
Oh my
from
goodness.
planes. Yeah, so so I'm scrambling. That was the first day. That was the first day. That was the first day we were announcing the name of the team. So
So what
needless
did
to
you do? You hit the button and put it on hold?
yeah, well, I was trying to, call up my sales rep over at NBC, and I couldn't get a hold of him, obviously, because everything else was going on. Just stopped. Luckily, obviously, they were smart. No one took a break in that day on
Yeah.
TV broadcasting, so we didn't have to do it. But we ended up having to kind of cease operations of the team and kind of starting over again, coming up with a new name and recruit, sign players and sign coaches, and yeah, so it was an incredible experience, and that led to the next thing, which ended up being going to work for the Walt Disney Company with Radio Disney, because while I was at Arena Football Team, which we had a lot of fun from the football side of it, we ended up going back-to-back division champs, 36-6. We
Nice.
won. We won because we didn't go after the big Division One Power Five guys because
Who was
they
your
already had
quarterback?
Ryan Venna. Yeah,
Okay.
we had a kid by the name of Ryan Venna. He was a three-time All-American at Colgate. He played at Columbine High School in Denver, Colorado, and he
Okay.
was won like 3 state championships. The thing about Ryan was he'll tell you he's 6 foot, but in reality he's about 5'9", 5'10",
Yeah.
and but he won 36 pro football games for us,
Good
in
for you.
2 years, and and so what a lot of people miss when they look at kids like Orion Venn out there, and that's why I started a recruiting agency, is because of those kids. It's like you can't, you can't teach and coach grit. Like you
No.
can't teach any of that, and and too many coaches get caught up on the look test,
Yeah.
right? And I always just say, and this goes back to my coaching days and recruit, especially my recruiting days, is I don't care what kind of 40 he has. I don't care what does he look like playing? Like, could
Right.
he play the game? I get it. Guess what, guys? Weights don't hit back. He
Yeah.
could have a
Right.
great bench press, a big, great squat,
Yeah.
but weights
And the
don't hit back.
combine. Right. The
What?
combine. Like, what's that even about?
Right. Just look
Yes.
at the film. Talk to him.
Right.
Right. Talk to their
Exactly.
coaches. Is he a good kid? Is he problem? How is he in
Yeah.
the locker room? Is he a good team player? You could win with a bunch of average players who have above average attitude and effort.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely. And everybody will tell you that, but no one listens.
No.
Right. Right. It's is that kid going to fit into our culture? And just ask a high school coach, right? Just
Right.
talk to them and do your due diligence, and they'll know about that. So, anyways, so I took the lessons I learned in recruiting for high school kids to recruiting for college kids playing in pro to being now a GM in arena football. The only difference between what we were doing and what the NFL GMs are doing is just a lot of zeros, right? These kids that we were signing all came off of NFL camps,
Yeah.
so they're part of the 1% that got out there. So that was another layer. We ended up creating, while we were there, I took a little piece of what I learned at the NFL with grassroots youth development programs. So we created a program called Move It. And Move It was a program I brought to the NFL at the time to do an in-school fitness program. I called it at the time, it was like Run, Shake, and something else. I can't even remember. But essentially it became NFL Play 60.
Yeah.
And but we got ahead of it and we called ours Move It. And we ended up doing a in-school program. We partnered with Radio Disney. We brought in a big HMO as our title sponsor. We did I don't know how many schools, and we brought thousands of kids and their families into it. It was based upon tracking their recreation for 2 weeks, their activity for 2 weeks. So they brought it back. It was a buy one get two, basically a buy one get one ticket. The kids got in, the parents had to pay. They bought merch, and we filled the arena, and that brought us a bunch of accolades, but also brought some visibility to the Walt Disney Company, who said, "Who is this guy? What are they doing there?" So the Walt Disney Company hired me to come be part of their Radio Disney, Disney XD, Disney Channel, the family-facing media, and hopefully connect some youth sports into it. So I did that for a decade, and it was out in Burbank, California, and it was incredible. If my wife
Yeah.
and kids would have moved out to Burbank, I'd still be with the company. It was just an incredible experience. But it rounded off my experience from a standpoint of, I'm just talking a lot, but I got to tell you the
That's
story,
good.
right? So it rounded off my experience from grassroots youth development, right? Building a brand and a franchise in sports out of nothing, building
Yeah.
out a completely global youth sports league, right? It didn't start in the last 5 years. It started 30 years ago, right?
Mm.
We set the foundation, came up with the rules. We did it all back then. Now it's an Olympic sport, so there's a lot of people out there that are benefiting from a lot of things that the league did invested in. I
Yeah.
was only part of a team, but it was important. After Disney, we had a lot of good experiences there. Created some more grassroots programming. We were lucky because we had the Jonas Brothers and Hannah Montana and a High School Musical. So I was there at the kind of the heart of it. And then I left and joined a private equity group, and we ended up buying what was the from a French media company. It was a series of tournaments. So it was 3-on-3 basketball called Hoop It Up, which a
Yeah.
lot of people may know of. It's a legendary kind of street basketball league. We bought Let It Fly, which is 5-on-5 flag football. Used to be NFL aired out and breakout from NHL and lacrosse box lacrosse property, and then we added a couple of digital. We added a digital media agency called Runway, and then we did a roll up and we created a software that did all the scheduling, bracketing, and rankings. But Hoop It Up, we were able to take Hoop It Up, bring it from the streets because kids aren't playing pickup basketball in the streets anymore. We brought it inside convention centers, inside these multiple sports complexes, and we were able to get the qualifiers for 3-on-3 basketball for the Olympics from FIBA and from USA Basketball, and we did a roll up and we exited in 2016. Yeah, so then I went to needed something to do, and I didn't necessarily cash out like my partners did at the private equity group. But so I went back to my alma mater. They called me up and asked me to come back and help them raise money to go up a level to Division 1 and for some
You
new
were there a
facility.
long time.
8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we ended up raising a good amount of money. We built a 35,000 square foot performance center because we changed the narrative. We changed the narrative from we're a little Division 2 school that no one knows about in the shadows of Yale, um,
Yeah.
because we missed our window to join Quinnipiacs and the Sacred Hearts and everybody else. I was jumping on this FCS mid to small Division 1 school bandwagon, and we decided to stay Division 2. And what most people, you know, no one cares about Division 2. Parents don't care about it. Kids don't care about it. It's a place that they had land because they couldn't get into anywhere else, or the financial package wasn't good. So they land with Division 2 colleges, and there's no difference in players when you go FCS to Division 2 or Division 3. They're all kind of the same. You have a couple of kids that are a little bit less, but for the most part, if you look at a Division 2 college football game and say Maine or Albany, and I'll argue this one to the only difference is the size of the offensive linemen.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the skill guys.
They're about the same.
They're all the same. There's a lot of fast guys out there,
Yeah.
right? The middle of the middle, you see D2 doesn't get those 6'5", 6'4" defensive tackles, and right, and the offensive line, you may have a guy that's maybe not as bright, right? But the size is right around the same.
Yeah.
But so that's the biggest difference. So, yeah. Anyway, so I went down that rabbit hole. So I joined them. We raised a bunch of money. We went through 8 athletic directors, and in 8 years. So that was a
How
challenge.
is that, Rob? When AD changes, don't they usually clean house and bring in their own people?
They didn't have enough time to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had some challenges. We had some priorities that we needed to go through as a school. Some good people, some bad people came through. Some people we wish that really stayed, that
Yeah.
did not stay, and I think they're heading in the right direction now. There is a big, presidents dictate a lot of colleges.
Yeah.
And if the president is not on the athletic bandwagon,
It's not going anywhere.
it's not going anywhere.
Yep.
So you could pretend for a while and you can build all the facilities you want. So, but it was a mentality. It was a Division 3 mentality that the school had, that we had. Wealthy parents don't send their kids to Division 2 colleges, especially ones that are in urban settings.
Right.
That's not happening. And what's
Yeah.
Connecticut's around us and now around us, all wealthy
Mm.
communities.
Yep.
So we weren't getting those kids. They were going to Sacred Heart and Quinnipiac, and they're going everywhere else. They're going SEC schools, right? Because
Hmm.
that's the new trend. Kids
Hmm.
go to SEC schools that would probably have stayed and gone to a Rutgers or gone to a
Yep.
UK. Now they're going to Clemson and Florida State. 40% of their enrollment down there is all Northeast and Midwest kids.
Wow.
So kids are kids know now that the college experience, because these are the kids that went through COVID sitting at home in their bedrooms,
Yeah.
right? So they don't want to go to school at and sit in the cold anymore. They want to go down there with palm trees and pools and big
Yeah.
time professional college football. So
Right.
that's the change, and we missed it. But I'm proud of at least where we go. I hope we go Division 3 because we're not going to go up. We missed the window to go up, and what's happening now? It's like you don't have we don't have the energy for that kind of money that needs to be required
And
to
they're
be.
D2 now?
They're D2. D2 is eventually going to be replaced by club sports. Like
Yeah.
it's not sustainable. Like you can't put out that kind of that support and that kind of scholarship money. And when at the end of the day, the same 45 parents are going to be sitting there or watching from stream as whether you're
Yeah.
Division 1 or Division 3, it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
So Division 3 is probably the best way to go. There's never going to be a shortage of high school kids that want to play in college, and they'll
Right.
play anywhere because of roster spots. So
Yep.
whether you're division, it doesn't matter. If you give them this, all kids universal, this is what they like. This is their priorities when they're looking at a college. All right, they can tell you that it's now. If they have the major that they're interested in, um, you know, then that's a bonus. But what colleges do, they'll spray it, right? So they'll throw a sports management, degree in there, or esports degree in there, or a health and wellness degree, or they'll throw all those degrees in there just to spray it to get some of those kids.
Yeah.
But kids want gear, right? They want a ton of gear. You give
Yeah.
those, because if you ever see those videos when the kids show you their day in the life as a Division 1
Oh, yeah.
college athlete at a school that no one's ever heard of, the first thing they show you is their gear, right?
Yeah.
Here's my locker. Here's the
Yeah.
7 T-shirts. You know how much that costs? $300.
Yeah.
It's not a big lift, but most schools don't understand that. That's their priority. What kind of gear do I have?
Yeah.
Because they're so proud of the fact that they made it.
Yep.
Right. The second part is food. How are they eating? What are you treating? What does that food look like after practice? Is the cafeteria, it's food. How are you going to feed? Are you going to feed? Do you have a nutritional bar in your weight room or by the locker room? Could they make a sandwich? Could they grab, right? Could they
Yep.
grab a Crustable, Uncrustable? Could
Yeah.
they,
Grab
right?
a shake and go.
Could I grab a shake and a power
Yeah.
bar and go? Is all
Yeah.
of that? You know how much that costs? $300, right? And most schools don't get that. So then you go down to travel. How are they traveling? Are they taking a school bus to the school that's a half hour away, right? Like no different than high school. Or are they going to get a little coach bus, right? To be pride. Does the coach bus have a nice wrap on it? It's
Yeah.
all about optics,
Yep.
right? What does their locker room look like? Do they have a locker room from like middle school, or do they have a nice stall with their name on it, right? And right, does it look professional? And then the last one is, what does their weight room look like?
Yeah.
Right, the facilities, but really the weight room. Did the school put any money and resource into their strength and conditioning? Because the majority of these kids, unlike Jeff, when you and I grew up, right? They didn't put it in the weight rooms. The high school didn't put the money in the weight rooms. There wasn't any special strength and conditioning coaches that you paid for during the off season. These kids have all had strength and conditioning coaches that they've done in the summertime in the off season,
Yes.
right? They're all over the place and they've all done it. So their expectations of that same resource needs to be on that campus. Those weights need to be branded and everything needs to look pretty cool. So
Yep.
it doesn't take much to provide. You may not be Division 1, but you can act it and you can treat them like it, right? So those are the things that I think matter the most to kids. Then what does their field look like and all that? But they don't remember that much as they do. Man, how much gear did I have? They killed us with gear at that school.
Yeah.
But how we traveled, we always traveled and stayed in a decent hotel. We ate
Yeah.
great. None of those things cost a lot, right? You could raise that money because you could sell the alums on the fact that we're raising money for the college experience. Because remember when we were here in the 80s, we had one trainer and we had to beg for tape, right? And now these kids got 5 trainers and they could get whatever tape they want. And the boom, 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 boom. I mean, hot and cold tubs and everything else. Do you have a sauna? Do you have all those things matter. right? So I think schools don't have to worry about jockeying for position on being Division 1 or Division 3. They just have to think about the overall student experience, student
Yeah.
athlete experience on and off campus, and they'll have them returning for the next 30 years and stroking checks because they want that experience just like they had to be great.
Yeah.
So that was the formula that was allowed us to raise a good amount of money in a very short period of time. We did 80% of the money we raised during COVID because we changed the narrative because we had the right AD come in, and
Yeah.
he just said, "Listen, we're going to go give our best shot to. We might not go Division 1, but we're going to treat you like you're Division 1."
Yeah.
That changed everything. So that was the mindset. Yeah. So that was it. That was kind of my full. There was a lot in there,
That's
but
cool. I
yeah,
mean, there's a lot of cool stuff,
yeah,
as I'm looking down, I'm writing stuff down, you just spent a good amount of time on recruiting, right?
yeah.
And and you said gear. If I go backwards to 1983, that's when I was a freshman in Maine. There was no gear.
Right.
Like they handed you stuff.
Yeah.
There was no logo, no nothing on it.
Right.
It was dark blue champion sweatshirts. That was it. You wore it and you
Right.
gave it back
You're
and you
right.
put your regular clothes on, you went home.
You're right.
There was no backpacks, no hats, no gears, no
Yeah.
nothing. And
Yeah.
if you took it and you
Right.
didn't give it back, you got
Right.
in
You get
trouble.
charged. Yeah. You
You
got
get
charged
charged,
for
got in
it.
trouble.
That's
And we're
right.
like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. And so now, these guys that it's like you said, they got 25 t-shirts,
Yeah.
backpacks, everything.
Yeah.
And then next year they get new ones.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you're so true. But
Hmm.
so can you talk about, I love your experience of what you created around the helping the high school kids get recruited into
Yeah.
college. Can you talk about, let's go backwards in time for your
Yeah.
recruiting experience when like you were coming out. What's it like back then compared to today? Like you kind of mapped out some pretty cool stuff, but I'm talking about from a mental side of the high school kid coming out of high school now. What's that recruiting pressure like for them today compared to what it was years ago?
You can relate to that. To this, I'm sure. So a lot of it depends on what your high school coach energy is. Do they proactively help you discover what's the best fit for you? Is the first side of that. Then what your parents' experience were like. I grew up in a town that none of our parents went to college. They were blue
Yeah,
collar people.
right.
So they didn't understand the process. They didn't understand the importance of it because their attitude was, we went to the school of hard knocks and so
Yeah,
should you. So they didn't really understand that. And they're like, I survived one parent families and blah, 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 and all this disruption.
right.
But you should be able to do it. It's easier for you guys today. I'm like, well, if your high school coach doesn't even give you the letters that your college is sending you, what do? You're kind of lost in your career, whatever. So the experience for me was, I, I had a I grew up with dyslexia, still have it, and I was never diagnosed until I got to college. And so I was never a great student. I loved going to school. I loved art. I loved my media classes. I was that nerd at the plays that did the spotlight and the camera, and I was the nerd at the games. Between seasons, I played football and lacrosse, and I got all these letters my sophomore and junior years, and I was a high school All-American as well, in all state in two sports, and I wasn't getting recruited. And my parents didn't know why, and well, they were like, well, you got a 1.2 grade point average. I had to go to
Mm,
summer school every year. So my senior year, I felt like a loser because I felt like I let everybody down. And I come May, end of the lacrosse season, I get a knock on my parents' door. I get a call from the local coach at University of New Haven, Coach Sperano. And he says, "Hey, would you mind coming up to the school?" I said, and I lived 5 miles away from the college, and I never saw the college. I never went to the college. I never even drove. I
yeah,
drove by it, but I didn't know anything about it because I lived closer to the shore, and that was a little bit more closer to downtown New Haven. I never went there. There's nothing in that part of town.
yep.
And so I drove over there. And I'm like, oh, this is a shithole. I'm not. There's no way I'm coming to school here. And I remember sitting down with the head coach, Larry McElreavy, who ended up becoming the head coach of Columbia, and he coached for a long time. So Coach Mack and Coach Sperano in there, and it was really tough love. And they said, "Listen, kid, you have no other options. Like you got a 1 point, you don't qualify. Like you're you're a prop 48 kid. Like you're done." So my sophomore and junior years, I got recruited heavily I wanted to go to the Naval Academy. I got my appointment from the Congress, and I had no idea. My parents thought I could just join the Navy and play
Yeah.
for the academy. They had no clue about how any of this
How it
worked.
works. Yep.
So I was so disappointed because it was like, yeah, you go to Navy prep, and I was like, what do I do? Well, you go to, can I go to there's and Northeast there's no junior colleges really. Like that's not a thing up here. You go to prep school, that's a lot
Yeah.
of money. My parents were not paying for it. Anyways, so they sat me down and they said, listen, the school is willing to take a chance on you. And if you, because we got your records from West Haven, the high school, we got everything on you. We know that you're not a troublemaker or a bad kid, but your test scores are ridiculous. Like, what were you doing? I was like, well, I don't know. I went to summer school every year. I love school. What are you talking about? And they're like, well, you got to pass one math class. And you pass the math class, then we will honor everything. We'll give you the food board, room board, tuition, everything. You want to be a criminal justice major? Perfect. I didn't even want to be a criminal justice major. You're like, no, you're going to be a criminal justice
Yeah.
major. Great, I will. That's fine. That sounds good.
We'll take it.
I'll take it. And so I took the one class. So I showed up in July. The professor or adjunct looked the same age as us 8 other nitwits sitting in that class, and it was kind of like, how much. Well, it was kind of what kind of idiot are you level. So it was an aptitude test we had to take, and I came back to next class, and she pulled me over before we all sat down. She goes, I'm gonna give you a series of numbers. Write them down. And I wrote them down. She's like, you got dyslexia. It's like, I thought that was kind of like it could have been a skin disease to me. I had no idea what it was,
You know
right?
what it was.
Yeah. So she's like, hey, what is your, she asked me a couple questions, and she goes, yeah, no, you got dyslexia. They never picked it up. I said, where'd you go to school? I went to high school here. I all got figures, just a kind of a, urban public school. So I was the good kid that didn't get in trouble. So the teachers, they just kept on passing me.
Yeah.
So she goes, I can help you. And she did. And it was really about attention. It was really about focus. And it's all tied to ADD, right?
Yeah.
And she was like, how do you do in like art class? And she goes, I said, great. I love it. She goes, that's why what happens is your brain what part of your brain shuts down a little bit, but your creative side, that's your superpower.
Yeah.
She didn't use those words, but I use them now. I said, that was your superpower, creativity. And she goes, just lean in on that. She goes, just focusing on, you're not dumb. You got an attention problem, Mr. Thompson. And I was like, yeah, I do. And so that was the beginning of me going through this whole period in high school, believing that I was never opening up my mouth, just being quiet, kind of hanging out with all the nerdy creative, artsy kids, music kids, because I fit better with them, and not even guys that I played with. I mean, I hung out with them, but those are the kids I fit with.
Yeah.
And that helped me in my career, because when you have dyslexia, there's a couple things. Number one, you have a great sense of smell, meaning you could smell bullshit coming a mile away, right? You could read people. They call it intuition now, but they used to be called street smarts, right? You have no fear of failure, right? So that's why you see these billionaire entrepreneurs, a majority of entrepreneurs have some form of dyslexia. It's just because it turns off oh my God, what if this doesn't work? I got a wife and 4 children and blah, 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 blah. You don't have that, because you have so much confidence in I could figure this out. Like, I got it. I understand it. So Elon Musk, and the list goes on and on and on. Albert Einstein, all of them, they all had dyslexia. So it does something to trigger something. It's not a hindrance once you really understand what it is.
Yeah.
So for me, that's how, and New Haven gave me everything. It gave me a chance. Coach Braun, I mean, I played my freshman year. I played 44 games there. And and it led me to the NFL. And because I played that many games, and I went from a scrawny I thought I was a middle linebacker, 6'2", 220, to 6'3", 285 my time I got out of there as a guard and center. And it was because of Coach Sperano and his tough love. And it's just a gritty place. It's, Haven's a gritty town. It's a gritty spot, no.
You still talk to him today?
Well, he passed away. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, he passed away. Nah, it's a shocker. I think I can't even believe I even said that because he's
Yeah.
just wasn't an incredible person. So, no, we had Mark Whipple who was there, and we had
Yeah.
Chris Palmer went on to be the quarterback coach of the Pats and for the Giants, and was in the league for 35 years. And Whip was the offensive coordinator at Pitt forever in Nebraska and Miami, and yeah, so we had great coaches. We had five guys my senior year, or three guys my senior year go um, on to the NFL. So we had 25 guys altogether. Our baseball team had 90 that went on to Major League Baseball.
Wow.
Yeah, 9-0. Yeah, so
That's crazy.
New Haven was a junior college back then. Like Division two was kind of our version in the Northeast of a
Yeah.
junior college. Like that's where you went if you academically could not go anywhere else. It was loaded with talent. It was loaded with talent at all over New England, right?
Yeah.
On the Division two level. Now it's more like Division three because the FCS 1AA has become the new Division two.
Right.
So anyway, so that has been my career. That's how I ended up in New Haven, but I met my wife there,
Yeah.
my best friends there. So everything in life happened for a reason.
It's like your foundation.
It was my foundation. My parents and my grandparents, my buddies from home, they were all able to kind of follow, you know, and it worked out well because I don't know if mentally or if going somewhere else I would have been able to kind of and I met the woman who, professor who changed everything for me, in that little summer school class. Never forget it. Yeah. So I what I've learned that you follow things that sometimes you may not see happening in your life that maybe don't see look right or maybe something you don't imagine it to be, whether it's picking up and moving to a new town to a job that maybe it's not what you envisioned because it's not a cool enough brand or company. But all of these things happen for a reason. And the things, um, like coming back here after 30 years to my hometown, which I'm in now. I haven't lived here in 30 years. We didn't raise our kids here, and now we're returning back. And it was a little bit like, do you sure we want to do this? But
Yeah.
all these things that have happened for us, whether it was returning to the alma mater to help them kind of reimagine their athletic department, to now working with the Walter Camp Football Foundation, helping them reimagine what that means as the oldest and the founding father of American football, which
Yeah.
99% of people don't
Don't
even
even
know
know.
about.
Yep.
So I just have let life happen to me, knowing that it's all it all is stitched together.
It all works out.
It all works out. And if you're doing it for the right reasons, right? If you're chasing things for the right reasons, not running away from something. And yeah, so I'm just, yeah.
Good stuff. So
Yeah.
talk about the Walter Camp stuff. I mean, that's you're so true. You're so right that so many people don't even know, like Walter who,
Right.
there's the Walter Camp Awards. There's all kinds of cool stuff. Talk about your involvement there and the impact you're making on the kids there.
So as I was digging a lot has to do with the economic development role that I had at the university. So that role was kind of my last year there with a president who was our AD became a president, and he said, "Go out there, Rob. Go out and try to find some facility, work around our campus, the outskirts of it, and try to build out you know, let's pick off some properties, let's redevelop some properties, let's figure out how we could put a stake in the ground. Because being at, Yale and UConn and Quinnipiac, and from an education standpoint, they're in ed tech, med tech, right? AI, quantum, innovation. Like there's no competing with them because of the grant money they get in the research schools that they are. We're not a research school. So it was like, where do we fit in? And I was like, well, David Beckerman, if you know that name, he is the founder of Starter Sports. If you remember Starter Sports,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Starter
I still
Sports
have
and
my Dallas Cowboy starter jacket still.
oh yeah, satin, right? It's like you want to sleep in a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we all got him here growing up.
Yep. Yep.
And so it was founded here in New Haven. It was a big part of,
Okay.
right? It was a big part of kind of this area. Like you grew up with it before it even get. So David Mecco is an alum of University of New Haven, and
Okay.
it was that conversation of, all right, he took a body bag company. It was a body bag company, turned it into one of the biggest brands in the world. He completely disrupted all the licensing with all the leagues. He blew away Converse and Reebok and Nike and Adidas. He took all the licensing deals away from them. How did he do it? Then you start thinking about, wait a minute, ESPN was started here.
Yeah.
right? And WWE was started here. The wiffle ball was invented here. The frisbee was invented here. And then, oh, we got Walter Camp is the oldest college All-American team. Well, let's do some diving into that. So as the economic development director, it's like, I want to be able to tell the story because ultimately I want to put a flag in the ground as University of New Haven is going to be the sports innovation technology, sport broadcast media kind of epicenter and hub in the state of Connecticut. Like we're not going to compete with Yale and UConn and all their med tech and health tech and all that. We're going to compete. We're going to be the ones because we got one of the founders of the biggest brands in the world. Boom. As an alum, let's put a stake in the ground. Well, what I discovered when I met with Walter Camp was, well, he's not only the guy who was he was a player and he was a coach here. The guy also invented the sport. I went, what? How did I not know that at 57 years old and I grew up here? Right? Because no one talked about it because the Heisman came in. And the Heisman was the one that everybody knows, but the Heisman was dying a slow death until they kind of became commercialized. Right. And they started promoting it and they brought in Nissan and they did a college tour and they right. They got ESPN and they do this incredibly boring half hour to an hour show. Right. Yeah. And they bring all so Heisman House. So Walter Camp is sitting there saying so the story with Walter Camp was he was a junior in college. Well, what happened back then, they claimed that Rutgers and Princeton was the first. Everybody believed that.
Right.
It was a soccer game. I was blown away. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So you go back and you research it. Back then, it was part of the British invasion. So back in the 1885, 1870s, right? So it was all club sports. It was the British invasion. They brought over with them at the time, which just started over there too, was soccer and rugby. They brought it to Harvard and they brought it to Princeton and they brought it to Yale. And so they did this hybrid of soccer and football. It's 15 on 15, so you could run with it, you could kill each other. Now remember, the students were running the sport back then. There was no coaches, there was no supervisors. So think about it, if you rolled the ball out, you took 30 junior young boys and on any campus, you said, figure out a sport and go kill each other.
Yeah.
That was what the sport was back then. That's why there was no coaching. There's no proper way of tackling. Everybody's leading with their head and trying to kill each other. It's kill the man with the ball.
Yeah.
Right. So what would happen is Princeton goes and plays Rutgers. Rutgers gets to decide what the rules are going to be. So you get a bunch of 17, 18, 19-year-old nitwits drinking beer back in 1876.
Yeah.
Hanging out saying, what rules are we going to play tomorrow? All right, well, Rutgers says we're going to play a mix between we're going to do the football rules. Well, football back then was soccer, right?
Yep.
So it got etched in history that the first football game was between Rutgers and Princeton. It was a soccer game. Crazy. I feel like I want my childhood back.
But they still promote that all over the place still, that it's the first real football game.
It's false. Yeah, it's false. So it was a mix between, so part of that, there was some of the rules that they could actually pick the ball up and run and kill each other with it, but it was a soccer game. So it was a mix between the two rules. So it wasn't an American football game. Right. So that's the difference. And yes, they had the first game of kind of this new sport that came around, right? But it was not an American football game at all. It was more of a soccer game than anything else. So I get it. You're Rutgers and you want to claim something in college football, you might as well claim that.
Claim that.
Right. But that's fine. So then you dig a little bit deeper. So the presidents of the school got together and basically said, listen, this sport is too dangerous. You guys are out of control. We're going to stop it. And Walter Camp got all the captains together and they said, listen, Walter Camp said, here's the problem, right? It's how we're tackling the collisions of it. Let's just have a line of scrimmage so we give each other some space so we could reset the play, not like rugby. So let's take 15 off the field. Let's put 11 on the field because there's too many people. It's like a brawl. So let's add some kind of continuity to this, and then let's come up with a first down. Right? Let's come up with a different scoring system because the scoring system is wacky. So he, as a junior, as a student athlete, he came and presented the rules and they accepted the rules. And from there, that's when it started to become forward pass and blah, 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 right?
All of that.
That was 1880. So that's why I got gridiron 1880. So the gridiron, obviously first down, right? Line of scrimmage or first downs. The gridiron 1880 is when the whole thing started, and it was voted upon by Trinity and Wesley in Connecticut were part of that. Yale, Harvard, Princeton, Rutgers, McGill, who never voted because they had their own Canadian rules. So, anyway, so that was the start of it. Walter Camp, then, he was a very, very introverted, quiet, cerebral guy, but he was really focused on physical education. So he played every sport, a club sport at Yale. He rowed, he played baseball. So then a couple of years later, the presidents came back and said, hold on here, because the student athletes said, wait a minute, we're playing baseball against these professional teams. We want to get paid too. And they said, well, we're not going to pay you for it, but if you guys charge admission, you could keep whatever you could keep that. Fast forward 5 years, or a little bit longer than that, like 20 years, Yale Harvard game, still club sports. Yale Harvard game, 50,000 people show up. Guess who's getting the money for that game? Student athletes.
Yeah.
Presidents get together after the season and said, hold on here. We got to have the adults got to be in charge. We want to be able to control this. So we're gonna name a professor or a faculty or an alum now has to come and supervise because the university should get all the money for this. Hence where we are today. Players want to get paid. So the school said, okay, fine. It's too dangerous of a sport. 18 guys died last year. And they basically said, well, there's more guys that died in rowing and yachting and college rowing accidents. So,
Really?
so right. And basically they said, okay, well, here's the compromise. Compromise is they started the NCAA the following year, 1906. So it's like, we have to have the adults in charge now. It's over for you student athletes. We're going to control the revenue, and it's going to be supervised by adults. Walter Camp happened to then be the first athletic director in the country. So along the same lines, Teddy Roosevelt hears about this. So Teddy Roosevelt comes to the rescue. He then gets all the presidents together and said, knock it off, right? College athletics is as important as going to English class for the overall student experience. Yeah. Let's figure this out, right? So that was in 1905 and 1906. The first version of the NCAA was formed. And after that, it took off. But Walter Camp wrote all the rules, wrote 12 books, was a ghostwriter for the New York Evening News, which became the New York Times. He created at that time the Walter Camp All-American football team because he wanted to promote it outside the East Coast. So he went and coached at Yale, won 14 national championships. So if you see the list, there's Bear Bryant and Saban, and the top is Walter Camp. But they don't consider that. They basically have taken it. It's in the record books, so they don't talk about it anymore. He had a 900 winning percentage average. He was unscored upon for 3 straight seasons, and he created a machine at Yale.
So why don't they talk about it anymore? Like, how come he's not up there in the top of everybody's conversation?
This is the start of it, Jeff. So this is what I've uncovered, and I validated with reading 2 books on it. And some historians, one historian here in New Haven who knew so much about it, the first fields were the locations, all that. So here's the reason why. Heisman. So let's talk about Heisman. So when they talk about Heisman came out, I don't know, 40, 50 years after Walter Camp. So Walter Camp was he was a ghostwriter. So he didn't even want his name on any of this. Like, he was the behind the scenes guy who everybody went to validate all the new rules and all that. So for years and years and years, but he wasn't a self-promoter. Heisman comes along, who was not a very good football player, right a little bit later, early 1900s, right, 1902, 1903. He coached, didn't have a lot of success coaching. His claim to fame was he built the first scoreboard. So that was his claim. That was Heisman's claim to fame, was he built the first scoreboard. Mm-hmm. Then he ended up becoming the executive director of the New York Athletic Club. Well, there was a really good football player who was an All-American, Walter Camp All-American out of Columbia. So they decided to have a black tie dinner at the Waldorf, or they did at the New York Athletic Club. Yep. And Heisman decides he wants to name the player of the year because there was not a player of the year. So he decides to name it after himself because what was he? He was a self-promoter. So the Heisman Trophy Award winner. Now, this is 40 years of All-Americans coming out from Walter Camp. The Walter Camp All-American team was not, started back in 1892. So fast forward to 1910, here comes Heisman. self-promoter, got to build an event around because I'm the executive director of the New York Athletic Club. And the Heisman Trophy
Took
took
off.
off. And now to this day, everybody has heard of the Heisman. Very few people, unless you're out, if you're inside the industry, you know who
Yeah.
Walter Camp is, but not a lot of people know that he was the guy who invented the sport. So
So,
there's a
Rob,
yeah,
you're
go ahead.
saying because Walter wasn't a self promoter, wasn't putting his name out there, wasn't getting involved.
Yeah.
This other guy was just, hey, it's all about me, and let's get my name out there and let's promote it. And he had maybe the money to do it. I don't know.
So
So,
there's yes, and there's another piece of this, and we talked about, I mentioned it before. So Yale, there's an arrogance, as you know, there's an arrogance with Ivy League, and
oh yeah,
rightfully so, right? Rightfully
yeah,
so.
sure.
So they've earned it. But the last thing they're going to do is promote American football because they're the ones that wanted to abolish it, right? The presidents wanted to abolish it. It doesn't. So I don't know if you knew this, but to this day, Ivy League football is not allowed to play in the NCAA national championship. They
Really?
are not allowed. Yeah, them in the
Until this
small
day, until even now, they can't do it.
right now. They have so if, so when they played into the national championship until like 1950, so they're able to play. Then it stopped. It really started. I think it ended right around. I
I'm
don't know,
getting a
even
great
before.
history lesson here.
Right, right. So it's nuts. So when the FCS was founded, um, the Ivy Leagues, Bart Giamatti, I believe, was the president of Yale at that time. They voted against allowing the football players because they did not want to take away from the integrity and the importance of academics at the Ivy League school or the travel schedules or they didn't want to stay on away for 5 days, right? For the
Right, right.
Friday nights and come back. So they did not want to disrupt that. So, and it never changed until this year. And the reason why it changed, in just from my opinion, is because the Ivy Leagues opted in to be part of that settlement and they're going to pay the money and they're going to opt in to pay players, right? So, because there are other sports, right, which are all Division One, right? Their hockey team won the national, right? Their lacrosse team wins the national championship. Their volleyball team and their softball team and the women's, they fly all over the place. They're on the road
Yeah.
for 30, 40 days. But the football team is different. It was the football, it's where it was born. Um, Yale and Harvard, they have presidents that are alums, right?
Yeah.
They could care less whether American football, it's almost embarrassing for them to say that American football was born in New Haven, Connecticut on Yale's campus from a Yale student athlete and a Yale alum. That's why. So
It's
to
crazy.
my point, no disrespect to Rutgers, they got to hold on. They'll imagine if Walter Camp went to Rutgers, right?
Right.
So they're
Yeah.
promoting that they had the first football game which was a soccer game, right? Could you imagine if Walter Camp, grew up and did this in Texas? Texas already thinks that they invented football,
Yeah.
right?
They
Which
think they own football.
right, they own football. They basically invented Friday Night Lights, though, right?
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
own that.
Yeah.
But could you imagine, right? But because of the elitist arrogance of Ivy League in this area, they fail to acknowledge it. So you drive, when you mention Cooperstown, what started there.
Yep.
Springfield, Massachusetts, what started there.
Basketball.
What happened in Canton, Ohio, what started there. What do you think about New Haven, Connecticut? Well, the frisbee was started here, right?
The wiffle
And
ball.
wiffle ball was started down the road in Bridgeport. Starter Sports was started here. ESPN was started up the street. WWE's down the street in Stanford. What about American football? Where's that started? Most people tell you can. Now it's pro football. Started in a car dealership, right? American football started on the campus of Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut. So Walter Camp is what we did with Walter Camp. So during this conversation was, hey, we need to reimagine who we are. We need to retell the story. We're a bunch of volunteers in New Haven. We mean well. We've had this black tie affair going on for 65 years, and it's been amazing. And who's who of American football has, from Burt Reynolds to Tom Landry to you name it, anybody is who's who in American football for the last 60, 50 something years have come through New Haven to accept an award part of this weekend. Well, this is the first year that the weekend has not happened. And the reason why is because of NIL. Players want to get paid. And since that's not happening, this is the first year they did not have the award
So,
ceremony.
so are you saying that the kids want to get paid to get the award?
Yes, they
So if
want to.
they're getting the award, you either pay me or I don't want it.
Yeah, or I'm not showing up.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, so that's where we are right now with it. So the
That's
most
horrible.
prestigious college football award. It's been so watered down. For years, it was only the All-American. Then Associated Press comes in, American
Yeah.
Football Coaches Association comes in, USA Today comes in, right? They all come in to say, hey, we're going to name our own All-American teams. And Walter Camp was like, wait a minute, we're the original. So a lot of it has changed from how we're going to name it, who are the kids. They do have the Player of the Year award, which comes out right before the Heisman. It's Travis Hunter. So it's usually the same Heisman winner. Then you got the Maxwell. You got everybody else coming in. And when you really dig on who these guys are, who these awards are named after, you realize it was just formed for another way to get publicity for a little nonprofit organization because the guy grew up there.
Yeah.
Right. So, Pop Warner, when you think about Pop Warner, right, Pop Warner was just a college coach who grew up because he coached Jim Thorpe. Right. And next thing you know is, let's name an award after him. Let's name a youth football after him. And it's the Pop Warner, the biggest youth football league is American Youth Football. It's get double the size, but no one's heard of that, right? Because they're not self-promoters.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of that there's arguably when people research even Abner Doubleday, they'll tell you that baseball started with the Knickerbockers in New Jersey. All right. So it started there as it was round ball. It was called round ball. Right. And just Abner Doubleday was just a promoter and he wanted to promote a baseball field. And so he was just a self promoter who everybody believed it back then. Right. So they credit him. It wasn't. It was Knickerbocker down in New Jersey and Manhattan. That's where baseball is the founding father because it was a variation of round ball and stick ball. Right.
Yeah.
So Naismith, the same thing. Naismith was a Canadian that came in. He was a gym teacher. He stayed for like 2 years, created it, and he went out to Kansas. And Kansas now owns the fact that Naismith was, he was the first coach of University, KU basketball. And so there's all of these things that I think if you really dive into it and the history of it and how we're coming back to disruption, players want to get paid.
Yeah.
This has all happened back in the 1800s and early 1900s, early 20th century. All of these problems happened.
And then the NCAA got involved.
Right.
And they shut it down.
Exactly.
They almost became like the athletic mafia.
Yes. Right. Exactly right. And the presidents are the ones who dictated it. Yeah. Right. So now you have a bunch of academics and politicians who don't understand business because everything that they do is outsourced. Right. So college athletics, everything on a major Power 5 campus from an athletic department, 90% of them outsource their ticket sales, their sponsorship, their media rights is done by the conference. Right. It's all outsourced. So when you're operating in business and you have guaranteed revenue coming in, kids are going to pay tuition because you got a good school and it's never going to end. Right. So and then you're going to tap into the government for grants. So you don't really have to think about the power of revenue. Now you got to think about who's getting all this money.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the athletic directors, it is coaches and the presidents and the provosts and the deans. It's very few people. Right. Yeah. So back then there's 50,000 people show up because they want to see these college kids play football. And then the academics get their hands around and say, no, we want that money. Right. Yeah. Your students here. We want to be able to control the money. It's the same thing. Right. So the arguments, whether you like it or not, the arguments are very similar to what they had back then, So fast forward, right? St. Francis plays in the NCAA tournament, right? Mm-hmm. So they get knocked out, right? They're the kind of they're the golden child again. Everybody's interested. They get knocked out. 2 days later, they come up with a press conference and a press release from their board that says we are now dropping down to Division III. And the reason why is because we are concerned about the travel of our student athletes in such distances where it's taking away from their friendship development in their classrooms and their overall experience on campus. So just tell the truth. You can't afford the $20 million, and it doesn't make sense to fly your field hockey team all over the country so 13 parents could watch.
Right.
I get it. Let's just say it. That's like we're not all stupid, right? So that's it's they're still trying to blame it on the athletic
Yeah.
experience. The athletic experience is incredible that you get to travel.
Yeah, they
Incredible
love
that you
that.
get this.
Stay in a
Right.
hotel. My God, you kidding me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. The first time I ever went to a restaurant was traveling with my college football
Yeah.
team. That
Yeah.
wasn't like a takeout.
The first time I was ever on an airplane in my life was my visit to Maine.
There you go.
I was scared to death to get on that plane by
Right.
myself, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. But
Right.
you listen to Gino at UConn, right?
Hmm.
The women's basketball coach. He had an interview, I don't know, it was 2, 3, 4 months ago. He said, let's just tell it like it is. These are professional athletes.
Right.
They should just be treated that way. Let
Yeah.
them, here's my opinion, what should go on is if I'm playing for Alabama, my football team, that's my major, playing football. That's the major.
Yeah.
And learn the sport, learn how to coach it, learn everything. You graduate with a degree in athletic development or something. And
Right.
just call it a day because like all this other crap, why do they have to go to math class?
Yeah.
Why do they have to go to English class? Why do they got to do all that? For what? Because just make it that you major in your sport and that's it.
Yeah, and I think to me I've seen it because I was there, building game plan U and working with student athletes who were taking the career path of entrepreneurship, and I looked at this as this is the golden opportunity that the universities have been given to roll in this discovery pathway for those kids that have the Gary Fee effect. They're seeing kids out there monetizing, whether it's on YouTube or social media or selling T-shirts, right? So let's give them an educational pathway on being an entrepreneurship. My tagline the whole time was, and still is solopreneurship is the new internship, right? You're
Yeah.
going to learn more from selling hats and T-shirts and marketing and branding and customer service and filling out taxes and understanding that part and finance than you will working some other internship that's meaningless. Like start a business. Guess what? Because if I'm hiring you and you're going to tell me on how you build up your business from scratch, from an idea into profitability and understanding cash flow and hiring people because you're 18 years old, dude, you're on your way.
Yeah.
Young lady, young man, you're on
Yeah.
your way. Like so for us, especially in education, the idea of going to college is to learn how to make money,
Yeah.
right? It's to learn how to make money, take the value of what you learn in your knowledge and apply that to creating value in the marketplace and selling something or whatever it may be, providing a service and it's making money. So if we could show them how to make money and leverage the platform, like no one gives like you don't have to be a student athlete to be able to do this, right? So, kids are musicians and creating their own channels and artists and whatever it may be. You got the kids that are going into the service business, but for the most part, you got kids that are, hey, I got a platform. I got kids that look up to me. I'm part of the 5% that made it here, that
Yeah.
I'm playing it. I have the platform, kids back home, coaches, parents, family and friends, extended people within my network. If I
Yeah.
roll out a t-shirt or a hat, chances are they're going to support me and they're going to buy it. Right.
Yeah.
And what did I learn from that? I had to set up a website. I had to market. I had to
Yeah.
all of those things that you learn from doing it in your dorm room. To me, that is the core of NIL. That is giving you a permission to go and discover your career path. And why not do it in solopreneurship when you could go to, Weebly's free, right? Canva is free. Bonfire to sell a product, it's free. Like
YouTube is free.
YouTube is free. Social media and marketing is free. All of these things we didn't have, Jeff, 20, 30
Yeah.
years ago. It cost a lot of money to do
Yeah.
all the things. Setting up an LLC used to be such a complicated attorneys. Now you go to LegalZoom.com and you're doing it for $400, right?
Yeah.
And they're filing all your paperwork, making sure you got your permits with the state. All of those things are done with a click of a button, right? So maybe your entrance point is your time and $400 or $500 to get started with legally with an LLC.
Yeah.
Other than that, so to me, NIL is that it's. I looked at this as, and it still do as, when you get attorneys and when you get academics and when you get politicians involved, you get a name like NIL and it's confusing because the intent and purpose of NIL, I surely believe with the NCAA, they just didn't know how to have the ownership go within the universities. is the career discovery of these kids to be able to monetize it with YouTube.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be the collectives, right? If they didn't see the collectives coming, like they didn't see it coming. The collectives came, they knew the loophole, they got involved in it. Now you have what you have, that you got to pay the players, and
Yeah.
it got away from them. If they looked at the model of military academies where we're going to pay you, right? Military academies are employees of the federal government.
Yep.
Like, just follow that model. We're
Yeah.
going to pay you. It's going to go into an account. We're going to give you zero interest loans against that, because now we want you to start borrowing. You gave us a service. And if, by the way, if you leave after, I think it's your sophomore year, if you
You
leave
got to
after,
pay it back.
you got to pay it back,
Yeah. Right.
right? So just follow the model that's already out there. It's working, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it was like, all right, if I sell your T-shirt or your hat or your jersey in our bookstore, that money is going to go right into an escrow account. And when you give us those 3-4 years, because we just paid for everything for you, when you give us those 3-4 years, you could take whatever's in that account, you could cash it in, you could roll it over into a Roth account, you could reinvest it in a wholesale insurance, whatever you want. Or you could apply it to buying a car, or you could donate it back to the university because you had a great, and you made more money on the other side of it, right? With
Yeah.
all the deals you got done. So to me, I didn't have a loud enough voice at the time to say it's already established. Follow what the military academies are already doing, right? They
Yeah.
got it figured out. So then you could pay for all the kids, any kid that comes into your school as a student athlete. All their tuition should be paid for, right? It should be covered by the university based upon the money you're raising through NIL as a school. So I'm going to go out and sell a sponsorship to a car dealer or the HMO or whoever it is. I'm going to bundle in all this. I'm going to bundle in what my
Yeah.
number is for tuition and housing and room and board. Like, I'm going to cover that nut, and then it's going to go across. So that's a grant. It's not going to pay for a signage in a stadium, right? And that number is going to go for those kids. And then we're going to give you all the assets and inventory and access, and we're going to put your cars on camp. We're going to do all those creative things, but we're partners with the kids. The kids are partners with us. And if I'm enrollment and I'm sitting there saying, listen, I'm at a school that needs help with enrollment, you got all these kids that have influence with their kids, and they're going to they're watching the videos,
Oh, yeah.
right? These kids are validating their testimonials of that university through
Yep.
Instagram and TikTok, right? So here's my code. My code is R Thompson. When you go enroll at the University of New Haven, when they say who referred you, well, Rob Thompson referred me by his videos, and it looks like that new Peterson Performance Center that they built, that looks amazing. I want to go play there.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Rob Thompson, as an alum, I get a little bit of kickback, right, on their tuition, right? So why not? You know how incentivized I'm going to be? And now, if I'm
Oh
a
my
student
God, yeah.
athlete, right? So I'm going to try to get as many kids I can from that hometown in New Jersey, right? Berkeley Heights, New Jersey. I want to get
Yeah.
those kids to come here because I come here and I had a great time, and all the resources are great. I had a great experience. So, put in Jeff M, and you get your kickback, right?
And
So
you got it all figured out.
well, 8 years at a university, when you come in as an entrepreneur, you're like,
Yeah.
these guys don't get it. Like they
Now, so with all your thought process there, when you go back to New Haven and you talk about all this stuff, what do they say?
you ever hear about what do they call it? That when the prophet is never accepted in his
yeah.
own village.
In his own village, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it became. Unfortunately, academics and entrepreneurs don't mix. They just
No,
don't
no.
mix. And I have a lot of respect for what they do in the business, because it is a business and they understand it, obviously, and they run a really interesting business. But I always used to say, you guys are running Blockbuster, man. You ain't getting it. Like, if you can't monetize your IP, which is your professors, and you partner with them and you give them a percentage of every online course that they put out there, let them make that money on it. They own the
Yeah.
IP, but you're going to be their partner, do a 60-40 split. They look at me like I'm nuts. I'm like, all right, well, Yale does online courses with their professors, and so does Harvard, and so does Purdue, and so does, like,
Yeah.
what am I missing
Why not?
here? Like, we had 30,000 Indian students apply for engineering at our school. 30,000.
Yeah.
Right? We accepted 3,000. Out of those 3,000, maybe 1,000 show up. The other ones come into the country, they got visas, and they scatter, and they go
Yep.
add up to other schools that they couldn't get visas to, and they wait and they apply. So I said, so what do we do with the other 27,000? Like, are we
That are
offering them
willing to
anything?
pay.
Right.
Yeah.
So are we offering them kind of a course, or hey, take this course and maybe next year you'll come in as part of the 3,000 or whatever? Oh no. Well, what are you doing to see it? Do you have a CRM built? Well, yeah. Well, we have it. Well, are you rolling out anything? No. Okay.
Well, why can't they? Hey, why can't they be in India and just go online and take the courses, pay the fee, and get a degree?
They can.
Why do they
And
have to be there?
right. And I said you could even do a hybrid because a lot of them want to take, I'd say every single Indian student, international student, so they're much more entrepreneurial than we are. And these kids are older, right? A lot of them are grad students. They're coming in, some of them are coming in their 30s. I said every single one of them are coming in with a business.
Yeah.
Every single one. I would almost guarantee that they're part of a startup or they are the founder of the startup. So they're not just coming here to get an education. They're coming here to find funding, to
Yeah.
network, and to take their idea from India and put it in the United States because of the economic engine that we are.
Yep.
So I said, so you got to understand. I would hope you guys understand that. So what's that bridge? Because we can't get them jobs here, right? Because we can't get them jobs here, especially Connecticut, because it's all Department of Defense. It's Sikorsky,
Yeah.
it's a Black Hawk helicopter, it's nuclear subs. So we can't get them jobs, and no one wants to pay that fee to hire an engineer when you got to hire a U.S. engineer. It's just a reality of it.
Yeah.
So I said, let's help them bridge that idea. Let's do a tech transfer, right, office, and let's get some of the IP. We're bringing them over here. We're educating them. So let's grab some of the IP. Let's partner with them and let's do a bridge. Let's bridge it into capital for them. Like, let's help them launch and commercialize their idea. And if it's not good, they go back home, right? We get a degree, we get the tuition, and see you later. But we help them, right? And at some point, we're gonna land on an Alibaba. We're gonna land on one of them, right? We're gonna land on one. If you got 2,000 or 3,000 of them, let's hope less than 0.01% we can land on and we can invest in, and it's gonna take off. So deaf ears. That's not us. Okay. We're not an entrepreneurial school. All right. Well, guess what? Entrepreneur school are going to be the new liberal arts school. That's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So everybody knows about it. So kids aren't going to get that at liberal arts degree. They're going to get a degree in art, right?
I can't tell him, Rob, how many times, like my son, who's a senior in college now, he'll tell me, Dad, I can learn all this on YouTube.
Yeah,
I don't need to go. Why do I need to do this?
for free.
I could get everything online, everything on YouTube. I don't all the things that they're teaching me, I can do myself.
Yep.
It's just the way it's going. Like you said, I think all that liberal arts crap is going to be gone.
On. Yeah, it's already starting. They're already starting to figure out. It's just trying to get through. The academics have so much power on campus. So,
Yeah.
The
It's a
professors,
money draw. Money
it
grab.
is.
Oh, it is.
It is. And I think everything's been exposed since COVID, right? People realize the whole thing is we want students here. We want students here. Oh, but it was all right to send them home and still collect their tuition though, because it's
Right.
fine.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you ask and you ask your son this, most of them take all their finals on Zoom. Most of them sitting at home. They're not going to. Well,
Right.
I have a couple of student housing houses, and these kids are always home. I'm like, do you guys not go to class? Oh, no, we take it online. I said, what the hell are you
They're asynchronous.
right. They're just
Yeah.
here to have fun and party,
Yeah.
and
I'm like, what
just,
the hell is asynchronous?
yeah,
No, we
right.
never heard of that.
Right. You have an option. Well, let's
Yeah.
have an option to show up for class or not. Can
Yeah.
you imagine if we had that back then?
Oh my
I would have been
God.
at one class.
Yeah.
I would have been at one class. Right.
Oh my God, that's
So
funny.
it's changing and it's blockbuster video.
Yeah.
It is, education is an exchange of knowledge, right? And if you can get knowledge for free on YouTube, what the hell do I got to go, get in debt for $100,000?
Right. Exactly.
Unless I'm going to Clemson or unless I'm going to a party school down south with pro football and basketball on campus, I get to float around in a pool Wednesday in February.
Right.
It's a no-brainer. That's why those
Yeah.
schools are blowing up with Northeast kids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Everybody's onto it.
Yeah.
Everybody, what I was doing? I was living down in Florida, and during COVID, we moved down to Sarasota, and what was happening was all of these kids were renting VBROs and they were renting Airbnbs. So they're kids that they grew up with or their roommates from a Northeast school or a Midwest school.
Yep.
They were coming down and renting schools because it was all online. So they're like, I'm not going back to my parents' house in college.
Right.
Let's go to Tampa, St. Pete, and Sarasota. Like, let's go down to Florida. Let's go down there, rent a house because these people are desperate to rent their houses out.
Yep.
Rent a house and let's go party it up for a year. And that's what it was, the invasion of. If you built a dorm just for that, could you imagine like just build in Florida. So wherever you go to school, you could come down and live in this apartment complex, this luxury apartment complex. So Ohio State. So you want to take a semester and just come, don't go to
Yeah.
Florida to take
Yeah.
a wine tasting and pasta cooking class. Come to Orlando or Tampa and come hang out down there and study abroad, study it internally in the country and
Yeah.
have a ball.
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah.
You should write a book on that.
Oh God.
So, so,
You and
so,
I just created a business.
oh yeah. So Rob, let's switch gears for a second. You
Sorry.
mentioned before that you said the 5% club.
Yeah.
You know, hit on that, man, because that I don't think the world understands what's going on there and really what's behind that and that whole thing that you put together is it's so important to talk about.
So it was just a viral. I was walking and I got off the phone with my buddy he's going through this whole, he had this hang up about his kid playing Division 1, right? And he was like, geez, Division 2, I don't know, Division 3, unless my kid's not, he's not a great academic kid, but I think he could play. And I just said, listen, so many, and you're my good friend. I said, don't get over that. Like, unless your kid's playing at a Power 5 big name state school, then everything else is a bunch of smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to go play at this one AA school. He's going to play baseball at some Northeast one AA school that no one's heard of outside of the Northeast, outside of New Hampshire, and no one cares.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to change his life. Like, get over that. Be thankful that and honor that kid that he's going to play at college and just get a roster spot
Yeah. Right.
is incredibly hard just to get a college coach now to reach out to high school kids because they're getting all the transfer kids.
Oh,
So,
they're getting screwed. The high school kids are getting screwed.
right, they came off of COVID. Now they're getting
Yeah.
screwed again. So these kids got no place to go. So I said, just be happy that they're part of the 5%. He goes, what's that? I said, 5%. Because I use this all the time when, being in college athletics is your kids, 5% of the kids actually have a roster spot. It's not about scholarships. It's about roster spots. Scholarships are no different than buying a car and you get a rebate, right? If your kid has a 3.0 or over, they're going to give you what they call a merit, right? Merit scholarship based upon your academics. So what happened, what they don't tell you is that next year, your sophomore year, and if you didn't get a 3.2 or 3.5, whatever their line is, that next year, guess what? You're not getting
Done.
that merit.
Yeah.
Right, you're done. Now you're paying. That's why 40% of school kids at all colleges transfer, right? Because they realize, oh my gosh, now I got to pay 50,000 for this place? No, that ain't
Mm.
happening. Mom and dad say, come on home, go to state school, go to community college and
Yep.
figure it out, right? So 5% club came down to if your kid is part of that 500th out of 8 million high school athletes across all sports, there's only 500,000. It's going to become less now because now you get limited walk-ons. 500,000 at Division 1, 500,000 roster spots across all sports, all levels. And if your kid is one of them, if you could get a roster spot, don't worry about the scholarship because you're going to be paying something. Unless your kid is a Power 5 basketball player, football player, you're paying.
Yep.
You're paying. So I love when people say, well, my kid got a full scholarship. What does he do? Well, he plays, I don't know, whatever non-revenue sport. I don't want to offend anybody. Non-revenue sport. Really? How much does housing cost you? Oh, about $800. Well, you don't got a full scholarship. So just settle down there. Like
Right.
I get it. You got a tuition that they gave you some rebate, you got some discount, you got some merit. It all kind of bundled together. They gave you a
Yep.
little bit of athletic scholarship and it added up, right? But you're still paying housing, you're still paying food, you're still paying for right. You're still paying. So it's
Yep.
not full. So very few Division 1 Power 5 have full athletic grant and aids.
Right.
Very few. So relax, everybody. Take a deep breath. As long as your kid plays, and I always say, if that campus is where your kid wants to be, regardless of sports, because there's a 40% chance that they're not going to play there. So they get hurt, they lose
Yeah.
interest, they get boyfriend, girlfriend, they don't like the coach, something. Only 60% of those 5% are actually going to play all 4 years. They get it.
Yeah.
All of these variables come in. They
Yep.
realize, hey, I just want to be a regular student. I don't want to get up at 5 and go lift because I
Yeah.
play tennis,
Right.
right? And I'm not into that because that's the reality of it,
Yeah.
right? So not all those kids, it changes. So now if I'm a college coach, I want the kid that's already been through a year or two. I know he's going to get up. or
Yep.
she. I
Go to
know
the
they're going to.
portal. Yep.
I know they're going to do all of those. I know that they're going to be able to get to class, and I know they're going to not going to be out. I know that they've come in and maybe they chose the wrong school or the coach leaves or whatever the variable is. So they're going to jump in a portal and they'll leave. Guess what? They've been doing that for years. They've always been. They transfer down a level. Whatever.
Yep.
They get homesick.
Yep.
So yes. So where are you going to go with the 5%? Schools are looking at this now as it's an enrollment play, right? We want every um, team is maxed out on their capacity. So let's take baseball. Baseball, you're going to have 35 kids on a roster. That's massive.
Yep.
What's going to happen to those kids, those freshmen that are coming in? They know they're not going to see the field for 2 years. What do? They transfer,
Yep.
right? Go in the transfer portal. 70% of the kids in transfer portal don't find another place to play, and you're not going to go back to where you're coming from. So I
Is
think
that the number, 70%?
yeah.
Wow.
70% don't get picked up, and they don't talk about that. No, those are for the bigger sports, but for the smaller sports, and
Yeah.
you're kind of looking for another tennis player, or golfer, or something. You probably find them. You could probably so they're going to max out. Your track
Yep.
and field teams. What most people don't. Track and field teams are massive roster. Most of those kids are all
Yeah.
paying. I don't care what level you're. They're
Right.
paying, right? So schools love them. You see now where you see club hockey becoming a huge thing because when you look at club hockey, when you look at varsity hockey in the Northeast and out in Minnesota, well, those are all 23-year-old Canadian kids,
Yeah.
right? Because they play in those leagues and they live with people and
Yep.
they play in those travel teams. Same thing is happening with Same thing's going to happen with all the sports, right? They're going to bypass coming to college and they're going to play in these kind of AAU function leagues. They're going to be living these multiple sport complexes that have 17 soccer fields. They're going to start building resident facilities for that prep post
Yeah.
school, right? So now you saw what happened. Kids that go to junior college, right? They go to junior college for two
Yeah.
years.
Doesn't
They don't
count anymore.
doesn't count.
Yeah.
So those junior colleges are going to start
They're like the
partnering.
minor leagues now.
Exactly. So the junior colleges are going to start partnering up with these multiple sports complexes, which Spooky Nook is. If you know Spooky Nook down in Pennsylvania, Lancaster, it's a massive facility.
Okay.
They're starting to build hotels and they're going to build recreation resident facilities and dorms, and they're going to plant the AAU club travel teams there. So AAU is now runs club hockey, and all the SEC, Clemson, Alabama, they all built hockey rinks, beautiful hockey rinks, and now they all get the kids that were great Northeast hockey players in high school. Where are they going? They're going to play club hockey
Yeah.
down in Clemson,
Yeah.
right? So AAU is already established. AAU, in my opinion, is going to be the new NCAA. Right. So they'll take over track and field, which they're the biggest. They'll take over volleyball. They'll probably take over everything except for basketball and football. They'll take over
Football.
baseball. They'll take over all of them for club sports. Right. They'll take over this new women's flag football that's coming around. Thank God. Right. So they'll take all of that over, and these teams will have 2 or 3 different club sports teams. These colleges. So now they could open up the rosters.
Yeah.
Kids have to be at campus, so they can't be remote, so they got to be there, and they'll start charging them. So, right, you want to take we got to give out, your scholarship for whatever non-revenue sport. Guess what you're going to do? You're going to get charged back. You're going to get charged back because you go to the trainer. You're going to get charged back for travel. You're going to get charged back all of that.
Yeah.
Right? It's not sustainable. So anyway, so the 5% club is going to become the 10 to 20% club because it is a business. Parents are still willing to pay for their kid. I was friends with this guy who told me he played football at Army, right? What I found out later on was he played sprint football at Army. He played on the club team.
Okay.
No one cared. The guy, number one, the guy went to West Point, right? So
Yeah. Which is
he's
so huge.
he's a pretty bad guy.
Yeah.
And the second part of it, he played football there, but he played sprint football, right? So it's the same thing. Kids, hey, I played hockey at Clemson, or I
Yeah.
played baseball at Penn State. Really? Oh yeah, I played his club. But who
Yeah.
cares? You're using the same facilities.
Mhm.
You get to tell everybody you played baseball at this big name school. So
Yep.
schools are starting to wise up to that. So the sustainability for the non-revenue sports, in my opinion, are going to get shifted over to club sports,
Right.
but still have the smoke screen and you get the facility,
Yeah.
right?
And you're going to get the kids anyway because the parents are willing to pay,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. Our parents weren't willing to pay for anything.
No. My parents didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. You
Right.
kidding me?
They were paying for anything.
Well, if you don't get a scholarship, you're not going. Go get a job.
Right. But
Yeah.
now it's different. We paid for our kids to play in these clubs
Yeah.
because it was fun. And I loved going on lacrosse tournaments up to
Oh yeah.
Vermont and all over because no one knew the rules, so no one's screaming. We're just sitting there drinking out of our red cups, listening to
Yeah.
reggae. I
Yeah.
mean, right? It's the greatest sport to watch as a parent, And so, anyways, that's kind of where I see this thing happening. And
Okay.
I just had a different lens sitting in an athletic department, listening to how all this was going down and
Yeah.
watching and being part of the study when we went looking to go Division 1. So I kind of saw where how the schools were recognizing the revenue coming in from
Yeah.
tuition and how they were recognizing it within an athletic
Yeah.
budget and donors and all that. So there's that
Okay.
formula kind of based around it. I'm like, this ain't sustainable. You know,
No.
this ain't, no one cares. There's 4 people watching their softball team,
Right.
four, four
Yeah.
parents, right?
Yeah.
And our poor volleyball team, we got kids from all over the country, international kids on soccer.
Yeah.
There's no parents there.
Nobody there.
We don't have enough U.S. kids that they're not getting roster spots because these kids, these 23-year-old kids from Spain are coming over, and there's
Yeah.
no one
Nobody
cares.
wants to watch them.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And they like these kids are coming over because our coaches need to win games.
Yeah.
Like no one, like you could go on, you can't win a game for 10 years, you still have your job. Like
Yeah.
just make sure they're paying tuition. That's
Yeah.
all we care
That's
about.
that's it. That's
That's
it.
it. You're right. So,
So talk
anyways,
about jobs. Talk about you touch on your book.
yeah.
About your book. How to land a dream job if your dad's not the
Yeah.
owner of the
Owns the
team.
team. Yeah. Yeah. So I had a lot of my friends and friends' kids and kids from the university would say, how did you work for the NFL? How'd you work for Disney? How'd you become a GM? And how did you do all these things? And it was like, well, I didn't plan any of it. A lot of it was my mindset. A lot of it was recognizing opportunities. A lot of it was because of entrepreneurship. Like I just threw myself out there and created areas that I saw that was a need for student athletes at the recruiting agency. And then what were the things that came around? I said there's an easy way, like anybody could get a job selling tickets at your minor league baseball team because they'll pay a straight commission and
Yeah.
you kind of do it all. I said, but to have a career in sports and entertainment and media is way different, right? It's a lot harder because you're not going to make any money for the first 20 years. You're going to be willing to do all the things that most people aren't willing to do, which is going to be work hard, work the weekends, travel, and sacrifice and all those things, which most people don't want to do and aren't willing to do. So they get into medical and tech and finance and blah, 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 blah. They go in different directions, right? So, and that's okay. So they wanted to know the secret. So I kind of broke it out into some stories that I had that I told, like I said, on the podcast, and I met some really cool guys and some cool people, and they shared their stories. And we all had these different pathways to it. Some of it was by accident through, working for an agency or getting lucky, meeting the right people or whatever it was. So I just figured that I would write a book. I always wanted to do one. There's a lot of people in this world that say I have that on my bucket list. But the difference between a wish and marketing is actually doing something.
Mm.
It's putting a pen to paper and executing on anything that you have an idea of. And that's the hardest part and then you have FOMO. You're like, or not FOMO, but you have kind of this, who am I? This imposter syndrome. It's like, my friends and family are going to laugh at me because I'm going to write a book. And here's Rob, who had dyslexia his whole life, and who is he? So I said, it's not for them. It's not for me. It's from that kid sitting there from the same kind of humble beginning that I came from, that could sit there that maybe had some challenges and say, "Well, if he could do it, why can't I do it?" That's my point,
Right.
right? So if it was able to affect 1 or 2 people, and then when I started to get responses and notes and DMs from people that just read it or brought it for their kid, and their kid was like, I just gave them some ideas, I guess, or inspired by
Yeah.
it. That to me was like I did the right thing. No, I got made fun of by some family members, and I would always say, "Well, let me read your book.
Yeah.
Let me read your
That's,
book. You
it's,
got a
it's
book?"
crazy. They make fun of you. You wrote a book that can impact so many other people and they make fun of you. Like
Yeah, I mean,
that's
it
because
was
they know
just
they can't do it. That's why they do it.
well, it was the same thing, and I would go and I very rarely spoke at any classes at my university, right? So I was always like I spoke at more schools than my own school, and I was right there every day on campus. And a lot of it I would say because I would basically say, you know what? There's an old saying, you can no more do what you don't know to come back from where you ain't never been. And I'm looking at a lot of professors that actually never been in the sports industry, but you're teaching
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
where's your sponsorship class, sales class? Where's your
Right.
where's your ticket sales class? Because guess what? Those are the 2 places kids are going to get jobs,
Yeah.
not on how to open up the gates to a facility.
Right.
right? Or hey, you want to be a broadcaster? Guess what? There's about four of them that have jobs in the country, in the world right
Yeah.
now, right? So you're upside down. You have no idea what's happening in this industry or what backing into what these kids, the skills they need. They'll do more if they know how to start a social media platform and
Yeah.
monetize it. They'll
Right.
get jobs that way and know how to use Canva and know how to use Chat GPT for
Yep.
research and analytics. Like you guys are way off because you never worked in the industry, right? So, I get it. You drove a Zamboni as an intern for a minor league hockey team, but now you're the expert.
Yeah.
Now you're
Yeah.
the expert that the media calls up for your point of view on what's happening in college athletics.
Right.
Why? Because you teach a class in it that you learn from other people that just did it.
Yeah.
So I think I just answered my question why I didn't speak in any of those classes because like, come on, man, so
But yeah, but Rob, if I'm just sitting here, if I'm going back forever ago and I'm sitting in a classroom,
yeah.
I would rather hear from you of what and about life and reality and what I can do outside of the classroom versus from some guy who's never done it.
Yeah. So that's why I wrote the book because it was like it became those kids that I did get to know on campus. It was like, man, could you help me? Could you
Yeah.
help me? How do I get a job? I just read my book, and then if you
Yeah.
have any questions, and what I would say, college kids, God forbid you get a text from them, return text or an email or a phone call return, like they wait and wait and
Oh
wait and
yeah.
wait, and then
Oh
and
yeah.
I don't care what level you're
And they
at,
talk in encryption.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it came down to that is if I'm going to throw it out there to you, student, you're going to come to me for help. I'm going to help you, right? Because there's only a very short period of your life that people are willing to help you. And it's when you're in college and school.
Yeah.
Other than that,
Yeah.
you're on your own, right?
Yeah.
So if you're willing to ask for help, I'm willing to help you. Here, start with my book. And then when you're done, let's set up a call or let's set up a visit, come into my office or whatever, and we'll do a Zoom or whatever. And I'll help you with the next step, maybe 10%. And I was
Right.
like, I realized at first I was a little bit like, well, maybe they didn't like it. Or I don't know what's going on here. But then the ones that did, that 10% that reached out to me, I'd hire all those kids. Like they were
Yeah.
like, okay,
Because they're the
great.
ones who read the book, listened to the book, and they actually, they're, I always say that you read for entertainment or you read for education.
Yeah,
And those are the kids who read for education. They didn't read it for entertainment.
right.
That's great.
Yeah. So I would do that for them and I give them the biggest hack. I said, here's the biggest hack you're ever going to have. I said, pick out the 5 teams you want to work for, put together, go on StreamYard or even do a Zoom and reach out to the 5 people within an organization that you see are posting, hey, we're looking for
Yeah.
a junior entry level sales position or whatever it may be. Get them because they're probably late 20s, early 30s, kind of a mid-major manager, and
Yeah.
reach out to them and say, hey, I do a podcast. I'd love for you to share your story. How did you do it? Just like you're doing, Jeff, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
reach out. How did you tell me about your career? Let's share that story with us. Like, how did you get where you are right now? And practice on me. I'll be your first one, right? And then come up with a name and go to Canva and
Yeah.
get a logo and kind of figure out what platform you want to do it, and we'll chop it up and you could share it and call up each one of them, send it out, and do that interview and find out. You get to know them just like we did. We
Yeah.
exchange back and forth. We're going to give you
Yep.
some answer. Here's my story. They'll be more than happy to do it.
Yeah.
So
Successful people love to talk about themselves,
yeah, right.
Even if they're not successful, even if they think they are, they like to talk,
Yeah,
which
well,
is good.
I'm no example of that because I just talked for the last hour and a half.
So,
So
so Rob, what
yeah, it
made you change the name of the book for a second edition?
was too long. Yeah, it was too long. Yeah, I
Okay.
did. Yeah, it was too long. I had to change it up a little bit. Yeah, I wanted to make it more of a workbook because I was doing workshops in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The name of the book I caught a lot of people's attention. It was kind of funny. I was like, yeah. I was like, how do you get a job in sports if your dad doesn't own the team?
Yeah.
So that's the question.
It's a catchy title though.
Yeah, yeah. It was like, it's hard. And you can't hate on the people because they weren't chosen. How they born into a wealthy family or family that owns a team. It's not their fault. Now, you gain the respect when you kind of work your way into it.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of that's the life, the world we live in. A lot of people they talk about Roger Goodell, right? Roger Goodell
Yeah.
will tell the story of I sent out 100 resumes and I did this and
Yeah.
only one. Roger, your dad was a state senator in New York. You got your first job with the Nets or with the Jets. Is it a secret how that happened? I don't know.
Yeah.
Your dad was a senator in that district. I mean, come on. You're like, so it's like there's a lot of kids that just don't know how to get in through the doorway and get in through the doorway and get through the resumes. It's really not what you know. It's kind of who knows you, and you got to use that network to the best you can. But most of the time in this day and age, it's not even about that.
Yeah.
It's about breaking through the clutter. And what we're doing is a way to do that. So
Yeah.
I just, so yeah, so everybody that ever executed on that, has gone in, and Mike Scharfenberg is a prime example. He was the one kid. I mean, I love this kid, and he was the first one I told to do it. And he got an interview with all five teams, and he got offered a job by all five teams, and now he's an executive still with the Tennessee Titans. And it was
Wow.
just because of what he did here on social media and sharing,
That's
that
awesome.
person's story. So yeah,
So the new book or the new title
yeah,
is Sports Dream Job Playbook,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And where can people get that?
Yeah, so on Amazon. Yeah, so you go to
Yeah.
Amazon and Sports Dream Job Playbook, it's right there, and it's available. I think it's $15 or whatever. So, it's really just a story. I made it into a playbook because I made it as part of a workshop that I did. So there's kind of a 10-step breakdown of some of the things you could do in your life. There's some of the examples I use in that. It's simple stuff, but most people, I always live by a couple things. Number one, my wife and I are very much devout Catholics,
Okay.
and four kids later is an example of that. But so, and we've been married for 35 years. But the foundation of our faith, and whatever your faith is, but our faith was kind of brought me to a level of character that allowed me to um, contain a good, I guess, a good reputation, and but because I never screwed anybody, right, and I stayed faithful to my wife, and all of those things that a lot of people fall off the rails, especially in the sports industry.
Oh yeah.
Simple things like high level of character of don't be standing at the bar with your colleagues in a conference at after 12 o'clock at night. Like,
Yeah.
go to bed.
Yeah.
Like, just go to bed. Like, stop it.
It's
There's
Rob, it's so
nothing.
funny you say that because I've been in the financial world for 38 years. And when I tell all the young guys we go on conferences and stuff, I'm like, two drink maximum. That's it.
Yeah.
And don't be out past 12. I say the same thing.
Same
It's
thing.
so funny.
Because we learned, right? We
Yeah,
made
yeah,
I made that mistake. And then you say
yeah,
stuff the net and you're like, oh my God, I hope I didn't say and you
yeah,
just don't put yourself in that position.
yeah, yeah,
Because don't complain and gossip in an organization because no one will bring you with them because they know that you're probably talking about them too at some point. So don't be the negative Nancy. No one wants to be around that person. You don't have to be the jokester, right? You could just be buttoned up. And remember,
yeah.
these people are not your best friends. Like they're
Right.
your work colleagues, make money together, right? Just be professional about it. Don't go into the office and talk junk about don't talk about the boss because at some point that boss is going to probably help you and going to written in,
Oh yeah.
right? So it's simple things like that. Like be the happy person. Don't stick around. Don't be part of the cancer in the locker room, right? Just the simple stuff like that of, have a routine. If you're a student athlete, don't ever get off of your routine. Like don't stop working out. Like don't stop the things that got you there because, it helps you train and think about the next thing. I was never that, hey, you got to get up at 5 and jump in the cold bath. And,
Yeah.
and those are great things if you're into it, but it's trendy and it sounds good. And it really is
Yeah.
for people that don't know how to train, right? If you weren't a student athlete, that foundation was never there.
Right.
So I think a lot of those things that I talk about in the book, you know, I think reflect on where kids are today and kind of the basic things that they need. Building your network. How do you build it? How do you ask people that you're around? Getting mentors. The 5 mentors that you build your own. I call them your life advisory board.
Yeah.
So that person that makes you nervous or a little bit, that person that, you're all a little bit uncomfortable with, but they're very, very successful and that they're going to tell you the truth, or that person that you want to surround that's rooting for you. It's usually a parent or a best friend, the person that's in the role that you want right now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you start building these people around you that could help you in your career, and it's life advisory board. People that are
Yeah.
going to be honest with you,
Yeah.
but that person that's a networker that can connect you, so
That's
a
awesome.
lot of those things are in that book
In
other
that
than,
book.
yeah, it's not my
You know
hall.
what? Every athlete should be reading that damn thing. I'm telling you.
It's like that
It sounds
transition.
everything's in there. Everything
Yeah,
you need.
because you said it. It's that transition period when we all go through what's next. Like, how do
Yeah.
you go from the field to you're used to a scoreboard, you're used to people around you or
Yeah.
all on the same team, that there's a team mentality. It's not like that in the real world in business. Most of those folks have never been college athletes. They're not on the same page. And they're, if you're not in a sales organization where there's a scoreboard, student athletes are used to scoreboards. They like
Yes.
scoreboards, right? So they need the scoreboard.
Everything's measured.
Everything's measurable. When you're not in that kind of environment, it becomes very challenging. And when that next purpose thing, you're used to being an athlete your whole life, and now you get that spigot turned off, and you're not referred to that being that student athlete. Who do you become, and what's your purpose? Finding this role within entrepreneurship while you're a college athlete helps you. There's nothing to me replaced being an athlete than entrepreneurship and sales and the competitive part of it, the wins and the losses and hitting your numbers and your budget and your goals. Same thing as sports. It's the
Yeah.
only thing it's not, it's not as cool, but it and in a lot of ways it is.
Yeah.
You get instant credibility on a lot of things and respect by people by how hard you work and all that. So
Yeah.
anyway, so that's kind of where the book came about and where my
Awesome.
mind was with Game Plan U and building that. Why, I worked in college athletics was helping through that discovery
Yeah.
way. And yeah, and it was really cool, really, really
Cool.
cool going through it. So I
So
still do.
what's next for you?
I want to be able to tell the story of Walter Camp. I want to be able to show, and bring back that iconic message of what the man did in the hometown that we both grew up in New Haven, and all the things that what's great about college athletics and what he stood for as a college athlete who was an innovator and an entrepreneur and impacted so many different things in people's lives and created this whole global sport that's part of so many of our lives as fans, as players, as coaches. And so for me, this next purpose is being back here, which I never thought I would be back, and taking a part of my DNA was part of his DNA. Anybody else, I grew up here. Good pizza that was on the street, and there's a lot of cool things about it, and it's a gritty place, right? And
Yeah.
a gritty place in a gritty time back between the Civil War and World War One, when all and the industrial revolution and all kind of happened. A lot of it was epicenter here, and it reflects on who the people are in this area, right?
Yeah.
Very blue collar, surrounded by a lot of wealth. But the majority of people that are here are blue collar, very humble, not humble, but they come from very humble means, I guess, right? So,
Yes.
and
Yes.
very, very much so in this area. And it's a misnomer. There's a very small part of this state along Greenwich and up that's
Yeah.
very, very wealthy. So probably
Yeah.
60% of the wealth in the US probably comes from that
Right
area.
there.
But the rest of the state is very rural, very country, right? Very blue collar, very
Yeah.
industrial. And not a lot of people know that. So when you have that DNA and when you have that as part of you, that's how those sports and kind of that innovation starts.
Yeah.
And so for me, is to keep the legacy alive of Walter Camp, what he did, and to hopefully have people recognize that and really celebrate the people and the players and the coaches and the fans that have been part of it. So Gridiron 1880 is the brand that we came out with. We'll do a membership-based program on any alums called the American Football Alumni Network. So it's a network and community of former players at beyond your university. It's high school, it's college, it's pro, and it's international that's celebrated, and we'll be able to give them an exclusive vote for high school, the Walter Camp High School and college at all levels, all American teams, events that we will do throughout the year, swag that we'll
Yeah.
have, and be able to network and build out their bio and be able to connect to other like-minded guys that went through the same experience that they went through,
Right.
regardless
Very cool.
regardless of level. So it's a smaller, more narrow version of 5% Club that, hey, what you guys been through, you kind of, whether you were a starter or an All-American or you only played for a couple of years, doesn't matter. You went through
Yeah.
it. And this is what this man built and created. He didn't create college football. He is youth, high school, pro, 5-on-5, arena football. It all started here. And so for me, it's being kind of the flag waver of that next phase of his legacy.
Hey, it sounds like it's gonna be a hell of a lot of fun. I'll tell you
So
that.
far, yeah. It's kind of cool. Yeah.
So Rob, we've talked about a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
We've been chatting now. If I look at the clock, going on 2 hours.
Oh my God.
Which is
It's,
awesome. I mean, I love when they just keep going, and there's so many
yeah.
cool things to chat about. But is there anything we haven't touched on you think we should hit before we wrap it up?
I think the best thing I could say for, and this is going to be short, quick advice for anybody if you're so any parent sitting, watching, listening, and any student athlete or just student in general. Um, and I know you probably heard it from other people, but use that time as when you're in your early 20s and keep in mind that try everything. Say yes to people. Don't chase a logo, chase an opportunity, right? And logos and brands and all that don't matter after a while because it's all about your character, who you are. Use your 20s as your discovery time. Pick up and move out of the area that you're currently in and try a lot of things happen when you change geographically, not just going to college, because college, for the most part, um, go to an area or a town or a market that it's different. Right? Challenge yourself in your 20s to do so because and start a business. Right? You have no, especially if you're in college, like there's no better time in your life to do it because you don't have a mortgage, probably.
Yeah.
You don't have children. You're not married. You don't have a lot of responsibility other than yourself. Starting a business, even if it's a side business in your 20s, will open up that pathway and eliminate things that you don't know is coming. You'll learn more from that part of it, and you'll discover what you don't want to do long before you land on a career that you love. So, and some people it takes a year or two, some people it takes 30 years,
Yeah.
right? But do that in your 20s. So that's probably the best thing that I wanted to leave everybody with a little bit of, especially those parents and kids, and parents are worried about that perfect pathway for their child. Like none of us had the perfect pathway for the
No.
most part, unless our dad
No.
owned the team, right? We
Yeah.
had to figure it out. We had to learn. And we had to eliminate the shit that we didn't like doing.
Yeah. I
That
had to make
wasn't
my
for
own
us.
path.
You had to make your own path. So
Yeah.
I think if we could relax a little bit with our own children, not put the pressure on them and support whether we like it or not, because our parents, whether they didn't, a lot of
Yeah.
us is like, go get a job, you know,
Yeah.
put a if you don't put a pair of work boots on and belong to a union, what the hell you doing?
Yeah. Right.
Right? You get a
Right.
retirement and a pension and blah blah blah
Yeah.
blah.
Exactly.
So for us, a lot of us didn't take that path, right? We did other things that we wanted to chase. Your kids and our kids are going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think supporting them, giving them the confidence to know that it's all going to work out, it's all going to be okay. Try the things that maybe frighten you a little bit, and then at the end, when you look back, you're going to be telling your kids the same thing that us nitwits told you. So there you go.
Rob, that is, great advice.
Yeah,
And I'm sitting here thinking as you're talking about this, I'm like, use your early 20s, to try everything. And, don't, I love what you said, don't chase a logo, chase an opportunity, and move out.
yeah,
It's so many kids are so afraid to move away.
yeah.
Just go. Even though the parents, as a parent, I don't want my kids to move away,
Oh God, no.
but
Right.
if they do it for a good cause and a good reason,
That's right.
you know?
Yeah, get out there, get off scholarship.
Yeah.
You graduate from college, our scholarships are
Yeah, get
over.
off the scholarship. That's
Get off
that's a
the
great
scholarship.
point. That's a great point. Well, Rob, listen, man, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it. I can't wait to see the impact you're making in the Walter Camp Arena and getting his legacy out there. So the rest, I mean, I learned a ton today, and what with the work you're doing, I mean, the rest of the athletic community, man, I can't imagine what they're going to learn.
So good, good. Thanks for letting me talk, man. I appreciate it.
It's been great having you, and I can't wait to see what you're doing.
See, cheers, Jeff.